to your first virtual field trip in your advanced higher geography course. In today's trip, we are going to be visiting St Andrews. I've assumed you have opened up the advanced higher GMT assignment number 1, and you've done the first few tasks in the build up to this. So before we go in and actually visit St Andrews and go and gather some data, I want to make sure that you have opened up your virtual jotter, which you will find in the classwork section, and that also you have done the reading on what environmental quality surveys are, because that is what our field trip is going to be all about, as well as having read something on bipolar analysis, which is a particular technique we are going to use to gather data. You also will need to have opened up the advanced higher GMT spreadsheet, which is also in the classwork section. And I'm just going to show you that very quickly, what that will look like once you've opened it. It has 10 sites that we're going to be visiting, and then you're going to be scoring these using a bipolar scoring system, which I'm going to talk about, as well as doing a pedestrian count at each of these locations in St Andrews. Okay, so make sure that's open there, ready for you to put your data in. You're now ready to actually go to St Andrews. So to do this, we are going to use Google Earth. Now, I suggest you are using Google Chrome to do this as your web browser. And if you're using anything else, I would use Chrome on your device, because Google Earth works much better with Chrome. So I'm just going to click on this little link, and it's going to take me to Google Earth. And it takes a little bit of time to load up. But it should launch to this sort of stage. And I want to actually launch the There we go. I can launch the Earth itself. Now, we're going to be using Google Earth for a couple of things. We're going to be using Google Earth in this part of the lesson to visit a range of locations. We're also going to pin those locations, and I'll be showing you how to do that. So we can produce a map to show the 10 sites that we visited. And then in another tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create a specific map called report symbols map to present the data that you get locations. So we're going to drop into Google Earth in a second. Because I've been on Google Earth, it's likely to drop me into the mass location. We'll just see where it does take me. When you load up the first time, it might take you to Paris or New York, something like that. And I would just suggest you close down all of the little add-ons, and just then, as I'll show you, take yourself to St Andrews. So it's being a bit slow, and I imagine it largely depends on the time of day that you access this, the speed at which Google Earth is going to load up. You may have Google Earth as a separate on your computer. You can use. I wouldn't suggest I would, because some of the things I'm going to be using are only available in the version of Google Earth and are not available in the online one. Now, once it's loaded up, you're going to want to do a few things before we get going. The first one is you're going to want to change your map view, map style, or just check. Let me just wait that it's on clean. And this will remove anything extra on, or remove all the other additional details that you don't want to see on your map. So you could include any of the other ones. You can play around with this if you want to see what borders and labels look like, but we're just going to work with no borders, labels, places, or roads on our map. Next thing we're going to want to do is, depending on where Google Earth the first time it opened has taken you, you're going to want to go to St Andrews. So type in Andrews, and then wait till it takes in. And that's what it will do. Now, you get lots of other little pop-ups with information that we don't necessarily want right now. So I'm just going to close these down and remove it from my screen. You've got a few little things you're going to have. You can choose to toggle your views. So that's you, and I 3D view. I'm going to keep it on 3D view. I'm also going to hit this little button which just will orientate my map so the top is north, east, south, and west. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to actually start adding some pins because I'm wanting you to visit 10 locations. So to do that, we are going to create a project. And to do a project, you have to hit create. Now, the first time you do this, it's going to want to create a project in your Google Drive. So you'll need to make sure you sign into your Google Drive, which I'm just going to do. And your options come up. You might have a slightly different way of signing in, whatever your browser gives you. So there we go. I'm signing into my Google Drive. And what that actually means is that any pins and data that I in Google Earth are going to be stored in my drive in the Google Drive. It allows me to add some data to Google Earth. Okay, I've now connected Google through my Google Drive, and I can go ahead and start adding some data. So let's go and create a project and create. Okay, it brings up this one. I need to give my project a name, so I'm going to put it sites visited in St. Andrews. And that's me got to that stage. Now what I want to do is I want to actually add my sites. Now, I ask you to select 10 locations in St. Andrews visit in this study. I'm going to ask you to create a map to do that, to show your 10 sites. Now, you're going to, one of the conditions I'm going to say, your site needs to be on a road, and it needs to be on a road junction. I'm just scrolling around and using the mouse to zoom in and zoom out, because I've got a small roller on my mouse. If you don't have a roller on your mouse, you can just use the plus and the minus buttons and just pull the screen around. And let's say I'm going to use this junction right here as one of my locations. This is going to be my first place I'm going to visit. So add a new place mark. I'm going to add a place mark, and you can choose your place marks that you want, and I'm going to call it number 1. And it gives me the default one there. I'm then going to add another feature, another site, and I'm going to add a place mark, and I'm going to call it over here number 2. Now, as you add them, you can spread them out across the whole of St. Andrews if you want. You obviously don't want them too close together because you'll be getting the data. So that's one of the key features. And the actual technique you're using is called systematic sampling. Now, systematic sampling is where, sorry, let's just retract that. Sorry, I just told you systematic. It's stratified sampling that we're using. So beg your pardon, just delete that from your head. We're using stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is where you select the locations that you want to visit. And the reason for you selecting the locations is because that's an important part of the study. In this case, our study involves us judging buildings and their quality. We're going to be counting people, so we need to be in places where there's pavements and where there's buildings. We need places that are accessible. They can't be in the middle of somewhere that we can get to. And therefore, we need a system that allows us to choose locations. We also don't want them to be too close to each other, so we're not duplicating the data when we're at each of these locations. And when you're finished, you will have a map with 10 locations on it. I've just done 4 for you right now. Across St Andrews, they can be around the central area, or if you wish, they can be across the whole of St Andrews dotted around. So it's up to you. It's your decision that how much of St Andrews do you want to cover. There are only 10 sites, so the more you spread them out, if you were really doing this for real, then you'd have a lot of walking to do. However, you might be interested in looking at the variation in environments from the suburbs right to the town centre, which is up here, or you might just want to look at variation within the town centre itself. It's up to you. I'm not setting any parameters on when you're choosing 10 sites, but I am insisting that you use a stratified sampling technique where you uh, select your locations, you spread them out across the town, and you make sure that they are junctions of main roads. Okay, so that's the end of the first tutorial, how to open up Google Earth and select your 10 locations. What you're going to want to do before we move to the second tutorial is you're going to need this one of the tasks later on, where I ask you to show me the 10 locations. So you're going to either do a screen grab. I'm just going to close this down. Or a screenshot. I use the snip tool. Use search function down here and search for snip. If you don't have, you might want to download it. I'm going to create a new snip, and I'm going to snip my area, which would show all 10 sites. That will then copy that onto the clipboard. And in this case, I'm just going to copy it, and it allows me later on to paste. So this is the first video, how to create your map showing your locations. In the next video, I'm going to show you actually how to gather data at each of these locations.